keeping with the theme of me starting the show with something personal that I'm going through, I've been thinking a lot this past week about my father. So I don't talk about my dad much. I have shared on a couple different platforms how I grew up and some of the abuse that I endured as a child. And I've never really gotten into the specifics of my relationship with my father or lack thereof. I haven't really gotten into the specifics of my family's relationship with him for a variety of reasons, mostly being that I feel like in some way me telling my story will tell others' stories as well, and they don't necessarily want theirs to be told. But I realized over, a lot of the traumas that I've endured in my life that in some ways I can trace back the origins of my comfortability with the toxicity that led to them to my relationship with my father. So my father is still alive. We do not speak. We haven't spoken in many, 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 many years. And I've had different conversations with therapists, with friends that are close to me, with people I've been in relationships with about how I should repair that relationship. If you have a bad relationship with a parent, I think each individual has a different perspective on what they want from that relationship or how they want to have conversations. Or I have a very close friend that didn't have a relationship with his father growing up. He now has repaired that relationship and they have a good relationship, working on better. And, talking to him, I was really happy for him that he was able to do that. And I don't want to necessarily say proud because I don't know the intricacies of what their relationship was. But for me personally, I do wonder how different of a person I would be if I had a relationship with a father. So not necessarily if I had a relationship with my father, but if I had a real, true father in my life. One of my best friend's fathers, I kind of adopted, in my late teens, early 20s, but we aren't as close enough as I would need to be with a father that I could rely on in that way. And in a lot of ways, not having a man in my life that I can call on in the way that you would call on a father has isolated me from men, has caused me to have a deep distrust for people. It's definitely formed some type of hyper independence. And all of these things I'm definitely working on and I recognize in myself. But I think when we talk about, daddy issues, you always default to your relationships with men and your relationship with sex and not being able to, form real bonds or have respect for men. And while some of those things are true, I think those can in some ways be the easily fixed issues when it comes to having daddy issues. I don't know if I'll ever be a real whole person because I don't have that safety net with a man in my life. And I don't think a brother can fix that. I'm very close with my brothers. I have an amazing relationship with my mom. She's a wonderful person and gives me a sense of home that no one else can. But the void of growing up in an unsafe environment, not knowing what the day is going to be one day to the next, almost sensing peace and quiet in any kind of tenderness from your father as manipulation because you know that it can be turned on its head at a second notice to complete terror. I don't know how to properly contextualize how surviving in an environment like that could ever just switch off as an adult. And believe me, I've done extensive work to try and repair what was broken in me from a very young age. My first memory in life, my oldest memory from the time that I was the youngest, was my mother running away from my father as he chased her around the kitchen table. And I'm hiding my younger brother and sister in my arms, and she's screaming at him not to hit her in front of us. That's my first memory in life. And so much of trauma is in your DNA. Obviously, it's passed from generations, and we know that that's a real thing. But it's also in how you're formed and what makes you feel safe, what feels familiar to you. And getting and breaking the chains of chaos that kind of childhood put in me was very hard to do, and I'm still working on it. But I also want to recognize all the things that I'm missing so that I'm not so hard on myself when I try to fix those things. So that's part one of the, the daddy issues rant. There'll be plenty more, but that's what I wanted to talk about today.